Hello friends, welcome to Coding Garden with CJ, welcome to Morning Tea with CJ, the show where I will attempt to answer your questions. We'll try to write some code, we'll have a good time, and it looks like you all are having some fun with the drop game today. Oh, Rao coming in? Not quite. Still made it on the leaderboard though. And the coding train is on the leaderboard with a 50.09, great work, and Timo is at the top with a 73. So if you're new to the show, you can visit qna.coding.garden, and you can ask your questions here. You don't have to log in, but if you do, you'll have the ability to vote on other people's questions. And if you log in as either a patron or a YouTube member, your question will bubble up to the top and you'll have a nice little icon next to your name. But we'll use this to answer questions just so I can keep track of all of the questions. So if you've asked a question in the chat, please ask it over here so we can try to get to it. As you can see, there's a lot of questions. So if you vote on them, it'll help me with what I'm going to answer. Let's say hello to all the wonderful people in the chat. Hello, Mahidra. Welcome to the show. Rao says, hope you're well. It's a holiday today here in the Bahamas, so glad I finally catch a morning tea. Welcome, and that's awesome. What holiday is it in the Bahamas? Hello, yes sir. Yeah, this is usually a good time for a lot of people to stream this early. But I got some good sleep last night, so I'm ready. Hello, Daniel Garden. Welcome. Hello, Mattia. Daniel says, I should be sleeping. Hello, Linus Dev. I don't know how to read Cyrillic, but is it Menop? I don't know. Hello, welcome. Not much. And hello, Alka. Welcome to the show. Hello, Zachary. Hello, Geet. Hello, Bob. Mattia is learning how to make Coke, the soda. That's very good. It's morning for me. Yeah. Were you up all night, Greg? And hello, Marcelo. And hello, JustWeb. But like I mentioned, you can ask this question on the Q&A, but actually, there is a question from, I think it was Andrew. He linked to a GitHub issue, but the GitHub issue is about custom authentication with feathers. I don't know if we'll have time to get to that today. It seems like it would be a good topic for, like its own stream. And if I do get to that question, I'll point you to where I talked about how I built this Q&A website, because it's using feathers, so we can get to that. But hello, welcome. Hello, Snooku, and hello, the coding train. How did I end up on the leaderboard? It's fairly random, so whenever you do a drop, the X and Y velocity is randomly chosen, and yeah, there you are. And there's also collision detection, so if other people drop, they could potentially hit you away. But we only show the top 5 scores, so you're slowly being pushed away. I can't stop. Yeah, people have said that the drop game is pretty addicting. Hello, Toby. Welcome to the show. And yeah, Shiftman. Hello, Ed. Welcome. Welcome. Hello, Honaf. Good morning, Andreas. Watching from work while doing some Friday bug fixing. That sounds like a good morning. And thanks for the Twitch follow, Honaf. Thanks, Dan. Oh yeah, and you may, if you've played the drop game before we had like a 30-second cooldown, but meaning you can only drop once every 30 seconds, but today it's a 90-second cooldown, just to make it a little less crazy on the screen. But if we start doing some coding, I might disable it just because it gets a little distracting. Bob is gonna unsub because of the 90-second cooldown. What's up, Doc? Good morning. My pro esports career is over. That just means you have to have, you gotta get better drops in with the 90-second cooldown. And this morning I'm drinking tea from a can, like I normally do. I'm drinking some yerba mate. Let me know what you're drinking. I'm drinking coffee, water, decaffeinated things. Hello, Marcelo. Welcome. And a reminder to ask your questions on qna.coding.garden. Hello, Rand. Good morning. Hello, N21. Dzień dobry. Was this Polish? That could be completely and totally wrong, but good morning, In. And good morning, Snoku. And yes, Greg, it is morning. It is currently 7:59 a.m. where I am in the world. And hello, Ashwin. Hello, JustWeb. So questions with more votes that aren't on the top are from people that are not members or patrons. So the questions at the top, you can see that they have a Patreon symbol next to them, and they have their tier icon. And I'll skip around because the ones at the top, like I mentioned, are patrons or members. But this question from Daniel Garden has 5 votes, but he's not a patron or a member. But we'll bounce back and forth between the member questions and the regular questions. Majority rule day. Hello, Valter. Welcome to the stream. Hello, Guy Dev. Oh, majority rule day. Okay, I was like, what? What does that mean? But in the this is the holiday in the Bahamas. Majority rule day. Let's see what it means. It's a public holiday. It's a day off for the general population. Maybe we should Wikipedia it. Does not exist. President's rule? We'll Google it. What are we celebrating? Oh, Polish. Very good. Very good. It became a holiday. Oh, in 2014. It's a fairly recent holiday. Well, that's cool that you get to get off of work. Commemorates the Bahamas going majority rule for the first time on January 10th, 1967, symbolizing the promise of equality, a level playing field, and a fair play for all Bahamians. That's awesome. Bob saying 9 a.m. still here, still haven't slept, trying to fix my sleep schedule. Yeah, I saw that you were streaming at like 2 a.m. my time last night, Bob. Get some sleep. There are no videos about custom services or auth. Yeah, so I'll when I get there, I'll show you the stream where I talked about this site. But I would like to do that because I'm actually using Feathers at work, and the more I use it, the more things I think up, and the more ways I try to figure out how to do certain things. Because I have some custom auth services at work as well. So yeah. Just ordered a new development server. It's 64 gigs of RAM and a Ryzen 3500. That's probably way too much for JavaScript, but you could handle a ton of traffic. And with 64 gigs of memory, you could have tons of Docker containers on there as well. So that's pretty cool. And hello, Sternholm Dev. Welcome. Happy New Year, Dark Hunter. Welcome. How do you query group by and count with Feathers Sequelize? I've never done that before. I could look into it, but yeah, I've never done it. Greeting, War Eagle. Welcome to the show. Hello, Andre. Good morning, Alan. Hello, Katoli. Are stuck. Stuck on. Wait. Oh, were you stuck like next to each other in the drop game? That's funny. Guide dev. With 64 gigabytes, you can open 2 Chrome tabs. Yeah. And hello, Coding Pasta. Welcome. Doc is asking any ideas for JavaScript-themed Jackbox party games. I haven't had any new ones, but I'll hold on to your question so people can think about it. So on Sunday, we're going to do a game night. And if you look at some of the past game nights, we've played the Jackbox Party Pack games, which are really cool party games where you all can see my screen and then everyone's playing on their mobile phone. So we're trying to come up with ideas for how we could make our own version, but have like JavaScript trivia questions or something like that. So if you have any ideas, let us know, because we might build that at the beginning of the stream on Sunday and then try to play it. Mattia's drinking coffee. That's good. Guy is saying, I'm going to contribute js.comments to Vtur with the hopes of learning enough about it to make significant changes later on. That's a great plan. Yeah, so usually if you're trying to get started with open source, adding comments to the code or fixing the documentation is a good way to start learning about it so you can contribute. Vtur is a plugin for VS Code that makes working with Vue.js really, really awesome in VS Code. So Vtur is the thing that they're mentioning. And it's pretty sweet. So if you work in Vue.js and you haven't used that, you should definitely check it out. Linus is drinking some nice, hot, freshly brewed tea. That's very good. Hello, Sentim Aran Derp. Welcome. Water, specifically tap water. If I can't taste the chlorine, I don't drink it. That's funny, Bob. And it's 4 p.m. for Sternholm Dev. Hello, Vigo Studio, welcome. And hello, Ben Arendammer, welcome. Raul says, a Bahamian story on the coding garden. We made it, yeah. Oh, wow. That's a long stream. And very early. So hard to watch the streams from Germany. Yeah, I think right now is a good time in Germany, right? Current time, like I've searched it before, current time in Germany, 4 p.m. But I guess you could be, it's Friday, you're probably still at work. I don't know, yeah. I'm saying it's 4 p.m. I'll be streaming for about an hour or two. At least 2 hours, I'll say that. Feathers.js inside Electron, that's definitely possible, yeah. You could even have like a Feathers server inside of your Electron app if you really wanted to. With like an in-memory database, because it's like local. Yeah. Hello, Siba. Welcome to the show. Yeah, that's pretty funny. With 64 gigabytes of RAM, you could open 2 Chrome tabs. I have several tabs open. I only have like 16 gigs of RAM. Good morning, Terminal Bash. Welcome. Hello, Zuber. We're going to figure that out. We're going to figure out what we're going to build. I'm going to try to answer some questions, and those questions usually lead to code. So we'll get there. And hello, Julian. Welcome. Coding Train says, I submitted a question, but I don't see it. Does it show up automatically? It does, but it might be at the bottom. Let's just search for coding. Yeah, it's here, but there's a lot of questions. And I'll try to get to it. And actually, oh, that's very interesting, because you actually are a YouTube member. Let me see. Oh, because you logged in with Discord. I see. So if you log in with your YouTube account, it will see that you're a YouTube member, and your question will actually bubble up to the top. And if you're using the same email on YouTube that you are on Discord, it'll automatically link your account. Otherwise, you'll have to ask the question again. Oh, you're on Patreon. Okay, I see. Same deal. If you have the same email on Patreon that you have on Discord, it'll recognize your membership. But yeah. Oh, I didn't mean to close that. But yeah, there are a ton of questions. We really need like an entire dedicated day to answer all those questions. Mahidra is asking for your vote on his question. That's not cheating. That's just asking, because people don't have to vote for it if they don't want to. How to handle IoT data in Node.js. You know, it would be fun to do an IoT stream. I have a ton of Arduinos and Raspberry Pis. So IoT is Internet of Things. And on a Raspberry Pi, you can run Node.js. Like I've written Node.js services that talk to sensors and things like that. So that would be fun to do. You see it. Oh, yeah. We saw the animation, just like jumped up to the top. I think. Or something happened. Something jumped up. Scrabble. Oh. Are you playing Scrabble all night? What's happening? Good morning, J. Fairley Webb. Welcome to the show. Have you formatted it in rainbow colors? Otherwise, a question seems to be invalid. That's funny. Hello, Jonathan. Good morning. Yeah. Chlorine. I hate that in my tap water because here in Switzerland we have great water. That's super interesting. Yeah, like in a lot of places in the U.S., there's actually like water treatment plants. There's not like a fresh water source, and so I mean, probably every major city has a water treatment plant, and they're gonna put chlorine in the water just to make sure that there's no contaminants in it and things like that. But yeah, it would be nice to just drink from a stream. Good morning, Nezia. Welcome. Yeah. And good morning, Julian. Welcome. Right now is perfect, but the other streams are at like 3 a.m. Yeah, so I did publish my stream schedule for this week, and most of the streams were in the evening, except for this one. Next week, I'll look at potentially doing like a Monday and a Wednesday morning stream. That might work out, where like every other week I do morning streams. The main thing is I just have to get a good night's rest. Otherwise, like I'm a mess in the mornings, so. All of the chats are integrated, but any of the purple ones are coming from Twitch. So the red ones are YouTube and the purple ones are Twitch. And the left-hand side is real time. So these are chats real time, and then these are chats as I check them off. And once I start answering questions, I'm going to stop checking off the chats because it gets really hard to manage after that. But I just like to say hello to everyone first. Yep, you got it. And thanks for the YouTube sub, Solomon. Yeah. It's pretty interesting. Not a lot of people have, like, usually when you see chat, the newest ones are at the bottom, and I've reversed it. so when a new chat comes in, it appears at the top of my screen, like that. But yeah, but it works for me. And it's super interesting. Like, if you look at my older streams, I didn't show the chat messages on the screen. I would be reading them off screen. It seems to work, but when there are a lot of people watching, it does get hard to manage. It's very true. Yeah. Cool. And yeah, I might make some Electron apps. I don't have any plans for it, but I do plan to. Cool. So I guess coding train Shiftman. Are there multiple? Oh well. Well, if you like Shiftman's question, go ahead and upvote it. Because yeah, if you logged in with another account, you might have to ask the question again. It only links if you use the same email on the different services. Yeah, IoT would be fun. Hello, Home Auto from Kenya. That's great. Thanks for tuning in. Hello, Tipsy Ninja. Morning stream gang. Yeah. There seem to be a lot more people that watch in the morning as well, but you know, you're a boys. I'm in awe of how you manage all this. Thanks, Dan. Appreciate that. and that's the thing. So we've had some. So the Coding Garden viewers are very nice and very tame, but we've had some fiascos because the stuff that if you send a chat message, it's going to show up on my screen. But for the most part, it's good. And what I eventually want to build is like a moderator dashboard where moderators can basically see the incoming live chat as well, but if they delete a message or mark a message, it removes it from my screen as well, because I actually don't have integrated with the YouTube stream chat API. It's really hard to, well, at least we haven't figured out how to get a notification when a message is removed. You could definitely do it with Twitch, but the idea is like moderators could basically manage what I'm seeing on my stream on my screen. That's eventual though. Doc is saying, you wanted game ideas involving MDN articles, right? How about Hangman? Guess the article title, and the clue is the browser versions number when the feature was introduced. That's not bad. It would. I'm curious how you could do a multiplayer Hangman game. Maybe we can think up rules for that, because it would be really cool to do. Like if we look at the MDN glossary, there's a ton of programming terms on here, and we could basically just pick a random term and have a Hangman game with it, but it could be multiplayer, so different people are guessing letters. Maybe you get points for guessing the most letters, something like that. That could be pretty fun. But yeah. Yes, Coding Train is here. The React Context API miniseries. That would be fun. I've been doing a lot of React and TypeScript at work, which the initial setup is very cumbersome and it's hard to get used to, but now that I have interfaces and types everywhere, it's pretty nice. But at the same time, the TypeScript errors are just insane. Like, I've started to gradually figure out what they mean, but they're basically like there's this really big long error message, and if you just look at the end, that's the real issue. Yeah, wow, who are you? The main thing is I'm working on a project that potentially other developers will inherit or other developers are going to work on. So having everything documented and having types on everything makes it it'll make it better for future developers, basically. Yeah. Let's take a quick stretch, but we're almost done catching up, and then we'll start answering questions. It'll be fun. Mahidra wants to see a React TypeScript series. Yeah, that would be fun. And I'll show you. I'm using this thing called Easy Peasy. Is this it? Yeah. This thing is awesome. So I'm not only am I using TypeScript, I'm using hooks. And Easy Peasy has beautiful hooks for global state management and reducers. And it it supports TypeScript really well. So if you look at their docs and you look at their TypeScript tutorial, you can create typed hooks that get global state. You can create reducers, and it's really cool. And the other thing is it actually allows you to modify state. So under the hood, it's probably using some immutable JS library, but instead of having to do the thing you normally do with like Redux or even regular React state, where you have to create a copy of the object and then update the copy, this thing lets you modify state. It recognizes the differences and then automatically updates state, and it also automatically integrates with the Redux dev tools. So without having to write any action creators or different things like that, it automatically logs your actions in the dev tools just based on like the name of the action you have in your store. I don't know. It's a beautiful thing. It makes working in React a little less cumbersome. So Ashwin says it'd be nice to see a collab between Coding Train and Coding Garden. It would. Yeah, we talked about it a long time ago. I was on his stream like over a year and a half ago. So it's a long time coming. And hello, Josh. Welcome. Yeah. Absolutely. It would be fun to do one. Maybe I could teach you Vue or React or something like that. I saw you did a React stream with MPJ from Fun Function. Time flies, yeah. Cool. I made this thing for you. Hopefully it helps. You can click where it says slug to auto select. Ah, okay. So I had some serious issues with code katas the other night, where you put well, I was trying to get the slug of the name of one of the coding problems, and I accidentally revealed my JSON web token. But this should help because you put the ID in, it automatically gets back the slug. So that's good. Thank you, Alka. And good morning, Assaders. Welcome. A strappy API backend with a front-end React context. It's doable, very doable. A multiplayer hangman game on Twitch. You whisper the bot the word, and it sets up the overlay and announces in chat. That's pretty cool. I'm curious how it would work, like, if it'd be turn by turn, or is it the first person to guess the letter or something like that? But yeah. I don't have any plan to make more Electron apps, but I will eventually at some point. I wanna actually create an emoji picker. I know there's an Electron app out there that you can install that does it, but like on a Mac we have this built-in emoji picker, and on Windows you can do command or Windows key space. But it would be fun to create a custom Electron app that allows you to select emojis. So that's what I might do. And yeah, TypeScript. Hello Adam, welcome. Hello Domenico. Yeah, who am I doing all this TypeScript? I didn't say I liked TypeScript. I said TypeScript is good for future me or other developers or collaboration, but that doesn't mean I like it. Yeah. Hardwire Happiness. Hello, Hardwire Happiness. Welcome. No, this is not a TypeScript stream. If somebody asks the question and it makes its way up to the top, it would be cool to show a demo with easy peasy and TypeScript because it's pretty cool. Yeah. Yeah, I was on Coding Train a while back. All right. There's a lot of questions. I mean, there's a lot of chats. Let's see if there's any greetings. Oh, yeah, GamerCat Nico. Hello, welcome. And hello, AWS Test, and hello, India Democracy. Welcome to the show. And thanks, Santimiran Darp, for the follow on Twitch. Much appreciated. Let me say hello to all the highs. Hello, Free Debugs, also known as Boyan. Hello, Durkerall. Oh, try the demo. A. Ah, this is very nicely styled, too. So it gives you... Yeah, look at those styles. This is great, Alka. So it gives you the difficulty, the name of the problem, and then the JSON response, which includes the slug and like a link to that kata. Very cool. Very cool. All right, we're going to start answering some questions. If you said hello or anything down there, feel free to say hi again. I'll try to catch it out of the corner of my eye. But let's get going. I think I'll start with this question. It's at the top. It has 5 votes from Constantinos, who's a fertilizer on Patreon. And their question is, any tips about automating deployment? Things like deploying to production when pushing changes to Git, triggering build scripts, instead of having to SSH into the server to manually pull changes and run scripts. Yeah, so I can talk about it. And let me just create some notes locally. What is today? Well, we'll do this. 2020 01 10. Yeah, so Mahidra is mentioning GitHub Actions, and I'll talk about those. So I actually have not worked with GitHub Actions, but I have worked with Travis CI, and that's what we use at work. And I'll talk about what it is and why we need it and different things like that. So basically, if you saw the stream where I was working on isitnewyearsday.com, this website is deployed on an AWS server, and if you go to isitnewyearsday.com, you can see anybody else that goes to the website. Their mouse will show up. Yeah, there's some people. And you can also open up the DevTools and say actions.set emoji, and that will change the emoji that shows up on the page. But the thing about this website is I deployed it manually, and you probably saw me doing that. So I would basically SSH into the server. I clone down the repo. Anytime I make a change, I would need to SSH back in, pull the changes down, restart the server, and everything would be working. But that's very cumbersome. I was doing it because I didn't mind. It didn't really need to be that automated. This site was really only useful for like a few days. But one thing you could do is you could integrate with your GitHub repo continuous integration or continuous deployment. So CI or CD. So CI stands for continuous integration. And then CD is continuous deployment. So continuous integration is what you might do is open a pull request on a project, and if all of the tests pass and the linter passes on that particular pull request, you could potentially automatically merge it into the repo. And then you can have some rules set up to where anytime you automatically merge into the repo, you can automatically deploy it. So this is continuous integration, continuous deployment. This is typically what people do with like DevOps types things. And there are different tools for doing it. So I mentioned Travis CI, and I can show that really quick. So Travis CI used to be very well integrated with GitHub. But now there's GitHub Actions. But let's go here, travisci.com. I guess you're going to see my projects. Let me hide my screen for a second. I just need to make sure that my work stuff isn't going to show up. Yeah, it is. I'm glad I didn't show that. Let's see if I go to travisci.org. The thing is, they were merging travisci.org and travisci.com. Okay, I'll at least show this. So, basically, what you can do is you can go into your GitHub repo, activate it with Travis, and then create a configuration file. So this travis.yaml file describes what to do to potentially automatically deploy or automatically merge a pull request. And I can show on the Coding Garden community. Is this it? Yes. We did have some Travis CI things set up. So this project is somewhat dead. We haven't worked on it in a while. It looks like Katoli did do some security updates, so that's good. But pretty soon we're going to revamp this project. But basically, this was a project that many different people can contribute to, and we had. You can see that next to each pull request, there's like a check mark or an X, and that's because when you make a pull request, it automatically runs the linter and it automatically runs the tests. And so if you look in the repo itself, there is this file called travis.yaml, and this describes what should happen whenever there is a new pull request or when something is merged. And you can look at the Travis website to see how to define this file. But basically what we've done here is before install, we're installing Yarn. And the thing about Travis or any of these other services is they actually spin up a container in the cloud to run your code or run your tests and run your linter and your scripts. So what this file describes is basically when a pull request happens, it's going to install Yarn on that computer. And then it's going to test and then potentially deploy. And it's only going to deploy if it is a push and not a fork. And so you can see the script here is to run the linter, run the tests, and then if those things pass, it's going to run our deploy script. And then we have a custom script. It says yarn run deploy that automatically deploys to now.sh. Now, ultimately, you can do whatever you want with these scripts. So travis.yaml is specific to Travis CI, and you can see that we run our deploy script here, which is completely and totally custom. This is just a bash script that detects which branch you're running on, makes sure all the environment variables are set, and then down here you can see it does the deploy to now.sh. But because this is a bash script, you could write a script that deploys to AWS, or DigitalOcean, or really any service. You would just write a custom bash script that does the deployment. And then there are other services that integrate automatically. But here's what I want to say. So travis.yaml is specific configuration for Travis CI. There are also GitHub Actions. And this is a new thing on GitHub that is directly integrated with GitHub, and it's very similar to Travis CI. So they have their own way of defining your YAML file, and in that YAML file, you can run your tests, you can run your linter, you can write scripts to automatically deploy. So here's like continuous integration, and they have different things you can add for that. And I believe so the thing is, I'm not totally familiar with GitHub Actions. So there is probably documentation somewhere about the YAML file and what goes in the YAML. Yeah, so here's an example of ci.yaml. It's probably a little bit different. It might actually be the same as Travis, I don't know. But you could read their documentation, and it describes basically what to put in your YAML file. So this particular starter workflows repo has different example YAML files for different things. So let's say you want to deploy to AWS. We could look at this file that describes what to do to log into like an instance and do the deployment and all that good stuff. So this is with GitHub Actions. But ultimately, you put the file in there, you add the integration, and then those things automatically get deployed. So I'm not going to set anything up right now. That was just like a general overview of it. But one thing I'll show is if you've ever looked at a GitHub repo and you see these check marks or these X's, that's because they have some sort of continuous integration set up. And you'll see that when a pull request happens, the Travis CI, the way we have it set up here, will automatically run the linter and the test for that particular pull request. So we can see there are a couple of commits where they failed, but then there were some commits, and at least the latest commit passed. And you can see right here, all checks have passed. You can click Show All Checks. If I click Details, that'll go out to Travis CI and actually show me the run of this. So we can see the log. Well, that's unfortunate. There we go. So this actually shows all the steps that ran when this thing was actually run on Travis CI. So you can see that it ran all of the tests, and those passed. It ran a coverage report, and because that passed, it got a little green check mark on GitHub. So basically, my tips are to learn about things like Travis CI, GitHub Actions. What are some other ones? Yeah, GitLab CI and CD. So that's integrated directly with GitLab. So if you're not familiar with GitLab, this is a place where you can host your Git repos, very similar to GitHub. Explore. But it's a totally separate service, not owned by Microsoft. And within your repos there and in your settings, you can actually set up CI and CD as well. Can anyone tell me some other services or things you could potentially integrate with GitHub for setting things up like that? Let's see. And Doc is mentioning you can get free Travis private builds if you're a student. So I think you just have to have a .edu domain and you can get free builds. Circle CI, that's another one. And I've used that for some projects as well. And not all of these services would support it, but at my work, we do native mobile development as well. So we actually have CI scripts for running tests for like iOS applications and Android applications. And we actually have some scripts set up on Travis CI that can do that. And I think Circle CI supports that as well. I've used Circle CI at work before, but we mainly stick with Travis CI. Let's see. This is a joke about what happened on the stream, but I don't think so. Shouldn't Shipman's question be first? Let me see. I might have to just refresh the page. Let's see. I don't think he asked the question with his linked account. That's probably why. That's okay. Yeah, so IntelliSense is really cool with TypeScript. There's a simple regular expression to get your message on here. So hello, Home Auto, welcome. Hello, Cliff Gore. Hello, Baskin. Hello, Phil Carbo. Hello, Euphorage. Welcome to the show. It's just a simple regular expression that looks for a hello or a hi in the message. Did I miss anything else? Let's see. Okay, let's see if anyone mentioned other services. Azure DevOps, that's for sure one. I haven't used it before, but it is a thing. There are flurries. Yeah, it was supposed to snow, and it was super cold this morning. Let's see what the weather is in Denver. It is 30 degrees, which is -1 degree Celsius. This doesn't show that there are flurries, but yeah, it's supposed to snow. Though the forecast doesn't say it's going to snow. I don't know. It's hard to predict with the mountains and such. Oh, thank you, Adam. Thanks for hanging out with us. Much appreciated. Yeah. Hello, Percelsior. Welcome. I didn't mean it. That's fine. AWS code deploy. Yeah, that's one too. So I've looked into that one. The only thing is most of the AWS services are very, what's the word? Tedious. There's a lot of documentation to figure out how things work, but that's definitely one you can use. All these fights for just a green check mark. I can't even integrate good decisions in my life. Well, if you write good tests, you could potentially integrate those. So if you have good tests for your life, then maybe you can integrate good decisions. I don't know. Hey, no worries, Coding Train. Cool. Yeah, so we're just answering Q&A questions today. Oh, yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, so if you remember, I used to have the poll.coding.garden. The idea is similar, but I wanted to integrate members and patrons, and I have visions. Like, visions for the future are that eventually I'll have live chat integrated in here, and I can easily just click a question and move it over to the Q&A. Right now, it's not integrated, which is why I'm asking everyone to go over here. So integrating the two would be great. Having a mod dashboard would be awesome. Allowing people in the chat to mark other people's questions as questions, or labeling them as side chatter, so that way they don't cloud up they don't make this too busy. I have a lot of ideas. And eventually I do want to, I'm going to open source it, but I potentially want to make it so that it's like a software as a service so other creators could use it as well. I've really got to think through the architecture though, because there's a lot of different use cases. Like, I built this specifically for me, and I'm using both Twitch and YouTube, but not everyone is using both Twitch and YouTube, so I have to think through how to like parameterize it and such. But yeah, cool. Alcabot is here. Welcome, Alcabot. Temp in Colorado, 14 degrees Fahrenheit. Oh wow. I wonder where it shows. That's not Denver. That might be in the mountains. Bitbucket pipelines. Yeah, that's a good one. So the question is tips on automating. Basically, choose one of these. You might look into each one of them and see which one's the easiest for you to understand. Github Actions might be the way to go. It's newer. They've learned a lot from all these other services that have been around for a while, and it integrates directly with GitHub. But basically, look into these. They have documentation on how to write your YAML file, how to integrate your code, all that good stuff. And this would basically allow you to do automatic deployment, automatic testing, that kind of stuff. 14 degrees Fahrenheit to degrees Celsius, negative 9.999999943. You should add a a precision on your Alcabot for conversion. That's funny. Worked on a new tab screen for my Mac to make me laugh. Oh, cool. Hello, Evil Pisces. Welcome. Easy C. Oh yeah, Netlify. I totally didn't mention Netlify. So, as far as things go, like Netlify is super easy. I don't know if they support backend deployments. But for front-end deployments, it's so easy. You can literally, let's see, let's get started. Sign up with GitHub. You can just point it at a GitHub repo, and you can see I've deployed some sites there as well. So you say like new site from Git, choose your site on GitHub. If it has a build task, it'll automatically run that. If it's just a static site, it'll automatically do that. And it starts listening for pushes to the repo. So if it sees a merge into the master branch or developer, whatever branch you choose, it will automatically build it and redeploy the site. So yeah, if you're working with front-end sites, Netlify is probably a really easy way to get started. You don't have to create any configurations or anything like that as well. So thanks, Zubair, for that mention. Test-driven decision-making. Yeah, I like it. Hello, Timo. That's funny. Wow. Yeah, the Alcobot can do a lot of things. Test for your life or your habits. Did you brush your teeth? Did you take a shower? You could basically have like a retro at the end of every day or like a checklist or something like that. See you later, Daniel. Hopefully you get some good rest. Yeah. Oh. Creates an array from 2 to 8. Oh, and then you could do like vector math. So array from 2 to 8 times 9 mod 3. Wow. Yeah. Heroku pipeline. I was going to say Popeline. That's another one. Heroku pipeline. Yeah. Oh, and I guess that's true. Yeah, you can actually, with Heroku, you can point it at a GitHub repo, and similar to Netlify, but for backend applications, if it sees a merge, it'll automatically deploy it. That's good to mention as well. How do I manage front-end applications? That's a very broad question. Hello, Cat2 Sims. Welcome. Firebase. Do they have automatic deployment? And then, yeah, now.sh has integration with GitHub. I've never set it up. I always do it manually, like from the command line. But we talked about this question for a long time. But to sum it up, those are the terms. These are the things you want to look for. And these are all the many different things you could potentially use to do that. But my recommendation is pick one and try to just create a simple configuration file for your Git repo to see if you can automatically get your test or your linter file running. And then potentially try to get deployment working as well. Deployment is a little more, depending on which service you're using, is a little more involved because you might have to set up SSH keys and different things like that. But yeah, something to look into. They have something with GitHub and with GitLab. Cool, didn't know that. And Cat2 Sim says, loved your video about middlewares. Helped me a lot. Appreciate that. Let's look at this really quick. So this is a GitHub action for Firebase. Very cool. Yeah, so basically you can set it up so that if you need to deploy, it will deploy to Firebase. And someone has created this configuration for you to use, which is pretty cool. I like it. Is there a way to comment out a bad decision? No, but you learn from your mistakes. Basically, life is just a big backlog of legacy code, and none of the code ever goes away. But you can build on top of it and potentially refactor. I don't know. That analogy kind of broke down. But let's keep answering questions. And thanks for the follow, CloudHawk. All right. This is a very simple question. Jorge is asking, I'd like to know what break timer do you use and the intervals you recommend for a development job? Sure. So you might have seen it popping up on my screen. This is this thing. And I have it set up for a micro break every 15 minutes. And so that micro break, and let's just show you what happens. So the micro break pops up, and it tells me, and you might have seen me doing this. Every now and then this pops up, and I'll just do like a quick stretch. So I have this set up to pop up every 15 minutes. And you can configure it with this tool called Timeout by Nodejs. So you can add more breaks in here. You can set it how often you want it to run, but I like to set it up as a 10-second micro break every 15 minutes. That just reminds me to really just get my hands off the keyboard. I really don't even have to stretch. It just prevents and mitigates repetitive strain injuries. So if you ever get pain in your wrist from typing all day long, really just taking your hands off the keyboard every now and then can prevent that from happening. So I have a 10-second micro break every 15 minutes, and then I have a 5-minute break every hour. I don't always take the full break. Like if you watch me stream before, I might take like a 2 or a 3-minute break. When I'm working, like at work, I will get up and walk around for 5 minutes, make sure I get some water and such. So I have a 5-minute break every hour and a 10-second break every 15 minutes. So that's how I have it set up. And I'm using Timeout by Nodejs. So this is a tool for Mac. And hello, Shaggy. Welcome. Hello, Tanvir. Welcome. Hello, Isaacs. Welcome to the show. Yeah, we will refactor this. That's really funny. There's a user called ThisDot on Twitch, and Dan was in here. I will refactor this later. Yeah. So Timeout by Nodejs is what I use, and that's for Mac only. Some people are mentioning Stretchly. I can share a link to that. So I've seen it before. I believe it's cross-platform, like an Electron app. Let's see. Yeah, the Break Timer Reminder app. And I believe it works cross-platform, so you can check it out. For Windows specifically, there is Timeout. No, not Timeout. iLeo. This thing prevents eye strain. And you can set it up in a similar way. I have Timeout set up where you get to choose the break length and how often it pops up. Yeah. Let's check that one out. And anyone in the chat, do you have other recommendations or like a recommendation for break timers that work on Linux, possibly? But thanks for the follow, CatCuSims. If I didn't mention it, thank you. Can I look at Brute on GitHub? A new way to go through a directory tree. Never heard of it. I'm intrigued. Brute. Oh, so it's for like the command line. That's pretty cool. I feel like there are similar things that work like inside of integrated with Vim. This might be a tool that's like outside of Vim, but yeah. Break Timer is a good alternative for Linux. Is it literally called Break Timer? Break Timer app. Very cool. I'll share that one as well. Hello, Johnson. Welcome. Yeah, so I shared Stretchly. Is Next.js getting popular? I didn't hear it for a long time. Next.js is huge. Yeah, a lot of people use Next.js. Hello, Shaggy. Welcome. So, Mattia recommends Stretchly. Alka made this random thing a couple hours ago in After Effects. Oh, are those like satellites or flies? What am I looking at? It's pretty cool. Yeah, Brute seems pretty cool. And yeah, there's Ranger on Linux, which might do a similar thing. Cron could schedule a reboot every 10 minutes. Reboot your computer every 10 minutes, so you have to take a break. Yeah. Yeah, NerdTree is what I've heard before, to do that similar navigation in Vim. Phil Carbo uses WorkCrave in Windows, so that's cool. This is my longer break timer. And actually, I think I'm going to respect it. So I'm going to stand up, I'll disable my camera, do a quick stretch, because I have been streaming for 55 minutes and sitting down for 55 minutes. So, and if you're watching at home and you've been sitting down this whole time, feel free to stand up as well. And this is a great time to give a shout out to all my members and patrons. So, Coding Garden is brought to you by viewers like you and I don't have any advertisements enabled on my channel. All of the support comes directly from viewers, so in a second you're going to see all the names of all the patrons and members that support me directly, and I appreciate them very much. Here they come. I'm going to do another stretch. Yeah, and I can check out WorkCrave. I've never heard of that. I have heard of this. Back in my days on Windows, I might have actually tried using this. Yeah. Pomodoro, okay. Oh, they're lamp posts, this thing? Interesting. Very interesting. Again, shout out to all my members and patrons. Hello, Mr. Alakalili, and thanks. Appreciate that. I highly recommend a 2-year-old toddler if you want to be constantly forced to move. Yeah, I'm sure that would do it. You gotta get up every 5 minutes. Hype. Morning pants are overrated. I'm wearing pants. It's funny though, like, yeah, it's funny. I'll just say that. Get up, stand up. Alka's been wearing a onesie all night. Evo Pisces just recommended a music playlist. That's good. I actually don't work with music. I used to, but now I just sit there with myself and my code without any music. Awesome, Pranjal. Have a safe ride home. I'll probably still be streaming when you get there. Yeah, Phil Carbo says +2 for the toddler method. And hello, Hassam. Welcome. Awesome. So that's my recommendation. Hopefully, and really anybody watching, if you don't have any sort of break timer, you should try using it. I used to get pains in my wrist, and I absolutely needed something like a break timer to remind me to take my hands off the keyboard. Because in terms of repetitive strain injuries, the easiest way to avoid them is to just not sit on the keyboard all day long. And really just take your hands off every now and then, because keeping your hand in the same position for a long time is what causes it. And Just Web at the top of the leaderboard with a 91.35. Great work. All right, so I think we'll come back to the member questions, and let's look at what Mahidra has asked. I may or may not get to it if it involves a lot of code, but let's see. React auth app. After a login, I'm saving the auth token to local storage. Routes which are requesting data from the server, they are secure because without the correct token, they redirect to the login page. But I myself am able to create any hard-coded token on local storage and able to see the protected routes. Yes. Yeah. So if you're using a JSON web token, the security of a JSON web token is that only the person that only the server that knows the secret for generating tokens can generate those tokens. So let's see. I'll say, like, with JWT, I'll say tokens can only be created with the secret on the server. If anyone, absolutely anyone, knows this secret, they can create tokens. So the idea is, for that secret on your backend, that needs to remain secret. That shouldn't be published anywhere. It should always it should be different on your production server than it is on your dev server. You want to make sure that your token secret on the backend is secure, because with that token secret, anybody can generate a token. Within your React app, you might be able to get to different pages, but if that token is invalid, your backend API routes would still respond with like unauthenticated if it's an invalid token. And one thing you can look into is a tool called Jwt Decode. I mean, you can actually do this manually because it's not that hard to do, but there are some implications. But Jwt Decode will actually take a token, turn it into a JSON object, and on your front end, you could decode the token and look at potentially the expiration date. Any token, and you're able to see the protected route? Oh, well then that's an issue with your backend. That's absolutely an issue with your backend. Like if your backend is allowing those requests through even with any token, then you don't have the correct verification on the backend. But yeah, I will mention really quick with something like, I mean, technically you can just decode the tokens yourself, and I'll show you that really quick. Like if we see an example token, and the thing about JSON Web Tokens is they are not encrypted. So if we take a value like this and we split it on periods, so JSON Web Tokens are encoded, not encrypted. So and that's the thing, Mahidra. Like you, yeah. So your front end probably needs to validate the token. So what your front end can do is the validation, and if it's an invalid token, then it can not display those routes as well. But so if you look at this token string, it's actually split up into 3 parts, separated by periods. The first part is a base64 string that describes the algorithm that was used to generate the token. So if we take this base64 string and decode it, I think we'll do A to B. We actually get back a JSON string, which says that the HS256 algorithm was used to generate this token. And if we pass that into json.parse, we're going to get an actual object where we can like detect the algorithm. The other thing is this center piece here. So you have 3 parts: the algorithm, the next part is the payload. If I do A to B of the payload, I get back a JSON object, and I can parse it, and that actually gives me a JSON object. And now that I've parsed it with JavaScript, I could say like payload dot issued at. So if it was issued more than 3 days ago, don't allow it. Or typically you can have an expiration date in here, and you can check the expiration date. Excuse me. The other thing you could do is like wrap this in a try catch. So you could try to parse the token and do this logic where you split it by periods, pull out this intersection and decode it, and put it in a try catch. And if it fails, then that means potentially that it's not a valid token. So really what you need to do is you need to do some basic validation of the token on the front end. Now, another thing you can do, which is a little bit more work, is instead of using the HS256 algorithm, which is the default, there's a way of creating a token that where you can actually verify that token was signed using the same secret on the front end. So one thing I'll show you is what I didn't show is the last part of the token is the signature. So if I do json.parse, I'm showing you right now, Mahidra. This is how you validate it. So if you can, what do you call it? If you will basically take this, split it on periods, take out this intersection, make sure you can decode it. That will at least make sure it's a valid token. But the tricky piece, which I'm about to show, is verifying the signature, because, yeah, this isn't well. I think we need to replace this. The other thing is you need to potentially replace characters with their counterpart. But the signature can really only be verified on the back end using the secret token. So by default with the HS256 algorithm, there's no way to verify a token on the front end. The way to do it is with a different algorithm. Let me see if they have the example on their site. Let's take a quick stretch. So there's HS256, and there's something with public and private keys. Yeah. So this one, the RS256, yeah, there we go. Doc has it. Sign it with a private key and verify it with a public key. So there's actually a way to do this, and if you're using the JSON Web Token library, then you could do this. So RS256 will sign it on the server side with a private key. And then in your client side, you can actually have the public key in your source code. So this public key can be deployed with your front end. And your front end code could use this public key to verify that this token was generated, or like the signature was created using the same private key. So that's the benefit of public-private private-public cryptography, is that without releasing the private key, we can still validate that this message was encrypted using the private key with our public key. So I'm not going to show how to do it directly, but I would say look into RS256 with JWT. I'm sure you'll find some tutorials out there on doing it, but basically what that would allow you to do is in your front end code, in your route you have that's just looking at the token, you could first validate that that token was created and signed using the public key, and if it was, allow the users to access those routes. Let's see if we see anything on npm. RS256. The JSON Web Token library might be able to use that by default. Yeah, so you can see they have an example in the JSON Web Token documentation. On your backend, you would read in the private key. Yeah, so what I'll mention really quick is, and for those of you that are new to JSON Web Token, typically whatever you have in the payload is not secret data. So really anything that you put in the payload, you're expecting that anyone is able to see that. So you would really never put passwords or anything like that in this payload. But what you do include is something like so subject. And that could be the actual user ID in your database. So you're just including like the user ID. And then on your back end, whenever a request comes in, you could do a lookup for this user and then pull any other sensitive fields that you need as well. But you would really never put sensitive data in here, because it defeats the purpose of the front end being able to decode it and use that information. So what I have done on websites is in that token, you can have things like display name or image URL. And then on the front end, you can automatically pull that information out, and you don't have to make a separate request to the back end. You just get that token, you can decode it and pull out those things and just like show a user icon with that. But you really can put anything you want inside this payload. So, I mean, technically, if you wanted to add some encrypted properties, you could have a custom middleware on the back end that decrypts those properties on incoming requests. That's absolutely possible as well. And hello, Talant, welcome. Yeah, and so really quick, if you see here in the JSON Web Token documentation, on your back end, you would have a private key. You can look up online how to generate a public and private key. But on your back end, you read in the private key, and then when you sign the tokens, you use that private key, and you say that you're using RS256. And then on your front end, you would use the public key to verify it. Yeah. Private keys and public keys are fun. And hello, One Love, welcome. Yeah. So I could potentially look for resources later, Mahidra, but I would search around. So search the web for JSON Web Token, RS256, validate on the front end. I'm sure you can find something. And if you can't, figure it out and then write a blog post to help other people. And if you still can't figure it out, I'll try to help you. Let me know on Discord. This would be a cool topic to show on stream as well, because I haven't really, I haven't worked with I haven't created tokens using public-private encryption. I've really only done like the public one. Yeah, cool. So that's that. That's like a small primer on JSON Web Tokens. Let's keep moving. Let's just talk about this one because this is a pretty easy one. So this one's coming from Daniel Garden. What are my preferred methods for generating REST API documentation? So my preferred one is API doc, API doc.js. And the reason I like API doc.js, why is it so hard to find? Oh yeah, and I'll mention really quickly. So if you are looking for resources on JSON Web Token, check out Free Code Camp, Ashwin is mentioning, and check out Bin Awad on YouTube. Yeah, because the first link on Google is API doc, and then DuckDuckGo couldn't find it. Oh well, poor thing. But Bin Awad has a ton of really good videos on JSON Web Tokens and best practices and how to use them. I don't know if he's done anything on RS-256, but he's definitely showed like how to decode them in the browser and different things like that. So check out Bin Awad. He has a great YouTube channel, a lot of good resources. Yeah, Bin Awad is amazing. Cool. So my preferred tool for REST API documentation is this thing called API doc. And the reason I like it is because when I build my APIs with Node.js, I typically write them code first. So I'm not, some of these other things you might have heard of like Swagger or OpenAPI, typically they, you have to create a configuration file to begin with that describes your API, describes your endpoints, and then that configuration is used to generate the documentation, and you potentially use that configuration to actually create your API. But what I like about API doc is you can use js.comments on top of any express route. So we can see some like basic examples here. And basically you put this JS doc right on top of an express route. You describe like what's the method, what's the URL. You can give it a name and a group. And you can give examples of what should happen in a successful response, what should happen in an error response. You can give examples of what the header should look like. And all of it is in a JS.comment. So I really like this because it's like your documentation embedded in your code. And if you're already using JS.doc, it's super great. And what it will do is generate a page like this. So after you've added that documentation to all of your routes, you can run generate, and it will create this web page that describes your API. So it can show the name, the method, it can show the URL, all this good stuff. And all of this information is coming from those documentations, or like those JS.comments. And so this is my preferred way because I like to write code first, and then I like to have the documentation embedded inside of the code. There are other ways. So I'll mention Swagger. It's one of the most popular ones, and it now is part of the OpenAPI spec. But basically with Swagger, you define your API in like a configuration file, and then Swagger can generate a UI similar to what we just saw, but using that configuration file. So if we search for Swagger Pet Store, this is like an example Swagger page and Swagger configuration. So let's see where it is. Is it source? Oh, it looks like, so they actually implemented this API with Java. And is it the POM file? No, so the POM is like dependencies. There's a configuration file in here. Source, gen, Swagger. They might actually be using like a Swagger backend library with Java. I don't know, but ultimately that generates this documentation. So we see Swagger Pet Store, and you might have seen documentation like this before. Actually, if you use like the Marvel API, their website has a documentation that looks like this, and it was generated using Swagger. So it shows you the method, it shows you the URL. You can go in and test it out. Excuse me. And something in my throat. But yeah, so you can see examples. You can actually test it out, and you can just click try it out. It'll make the request. So pet ID, I want pet ID 1. Let's see if that works. And then it'll show you the example response. So Swagger's pretty cool. But basically, there's like a configuration file. Yeah, I was looking for the YAML. Where is it? Master... Swagger API, Swagger code gen. Okay, but yeah, thank you, Doc. I'll show this. Here we go. Yes, this is what I was looking for, because this YAML file is basically a description for generating this page of documentation. So if you look at this YAML file, it'll have all of the routes described. So it has /pet. You can make a post request. Here's a summary. This is the type of data that you can pass in. These are the parameters of the body. These are possible responses that you'll get. You can also make a put request. So basically every possible route for this API is described in this YAML file. Excuse me. And then this YAML file is used to generate this web page. So there's that. And so it's kind of like two different things. You have embedded documentation, and then you have like configuration first. So there's that, and there are others. I'll mention real quick Open API, and I believe Swagger and Open API have just like merged. So like the Open API specification, Swagger now implements that specification. And so basically this is a specification on how to describe APIs. And if you follow this specification, there are many different tools out there for like visualizing and interacting with that API. So there's Open API. Let me catch up on the chat. We've gotten some follows and some hellos. Thanks for the follow, Raptor. Welcome to the show. Ricky says, I met you at 3K. Congrats. Oh, thank you. Yeah, we're at like over 26,000 now. Yeah, and that's a good one, Zubair, is Postman, because we actually use that at work. But I'll mention it costs money, and I really don't like that, because you, well, I mean, supporting companies is great and fine and everything, but never mind, because the benefits they provide is collaborating on this documentation. But like what I mentioned, I like having the documentation embedded in the source code, because then the collaboration just happens with Git. So if you need to update the documentation, you just update the code. Whereas collaboration with Postman, like syncs in the cloud, and you have to have a cloud account. But yeah, I'll show Postman really quick. Basically, you can create a configuration file, a collection, which is all described entirely with JSON, which describes, let me see if I have any collections. I don't. But inside of Postman, which is a tool for working with REST APIs, you could create a collection, give it a name like Pet Store, and then inside of here, you can add a request. So we can say like get all pets. We're going to save it in here. And in now that I've created it, I can actually describe it. So let's say we want to get some URL. We'll say it's like parameterized /API/v1/pets. And that's really all I need to do. And then I can just save this collection. So let me close this. And then if we click Get All Pets now, it's automatically going to come up with that URL. I could also add any example headers or example body. And now this collection can be shared with others. So I can take this collection and say share. I could also export it as a JSON file. And if you are signed up with their online account, you can have a team workspace where you can all collaborate on the same collection. So this is another tool as well. Let's take a quick stretch. Yep. And thanks for the YouTube follow, or YouTube sub, Mustafa. And thanks for the follow, S Venus. Welcome. Yeah, I'm not sure about Facebook chats. Yeah. And so I can show really quick, if we just say like export, and we'll do a version 2.1, this is going to generate a JSON file. Let's put this in Coding Garden. Morning tea. So that generates a JSON file. And then you could potentially share this JSON file with other people. So if we look at it, it basically describes all of the routes. So we have the get all pets route, which is a get against this URL. And you can show like example responses or example headers, and those will all show up in here. And you could give this JSON file to someone else, and they could actually use that collection. To actually collaborate on it, you do need like a Postman account. It's a good point, Doc, but I see it as the actual API isn't generated from the YAML docs. Like if you're building an API with like Node.js and Express, and you want to document it with Swagger, it would be a separate configuration file, and then that code is that configuration code is separate from the documentation code. And so it could actually be that the configuration file gets out of date from the actual source code. You could run into a similar problem. And that's sometimes a problem with comments in code, is that the comments go out of date when the code gets updated. But I like that it's embedded because they can be collaborated on in the same place, and updates to the code should entail updates to the same JS.doc comment for that particular route. And you might have that a part of your code review process, where like if somebody updates a route, you need to make sure that the comments and JS.doc stuff was updated as well. Hasura is pretty sweet. I've seen Hasura before. It generates GraphQL APIs. If you use Java Spring Boot, Swagger is almost configurationless. You don't need to add routes to Swagger. You make it appear on the Swagger UI, and it just works. That's interesting. There might be a library for Express as well that does something similar. Because I saw in their code they were importing things directly from what do you call it? So importing like Java files directly from the Swagger library. So this allows you to serve it. You do have to pass in your Swagger document. And so this is my experience with it in Node.js, is like the configuration JSON file is totally separate anyways. There are probably tools that can generate it automatically. But yeah. Yeah. And I'm curious, does Postwomen have collections? I don't know if it does. It's a pretty new tool. Real-time documentation requests. Yeah. Oh, here we go. Collections. Yeah, so you can add new things to your collection as well, and then potentially export, import them. Very cool. Thanks, Motivation. Any setup for JS.doc? There's a little bit of there's setup for API doc. Swagger, you really just need to add the configuration file, and then if you're using Express, you could use something like this to actually serve the documentation. Let me see. Yeah, I'm not totally familiar with it, but yeah. Procelsior is saying, a question that I always ask myself is, should I use get parameters or URL parameters in a get route? It really depends. And there is a lot of opinions on it. But typically what I like to do is the URL should only contain like identifiers and yeah, so like get pets slash some ID. But then if you want to start doing filtering, those come in the query parameters. So get pets and then where the name includes Fido. And so that would be in the query string. So question mark name equals Fido. And so like use parameters for things for like filtering, and then use the URL for actually identifying an individual resource or like a collection of resources. But there's a lot of opinions on it. See you later, Katoli. Thanks for hanging out. Swagger node code gen. Let's check it out. So you install it, say generate. I mean, it looks like it generates. I don't know what kind of code it takes in, though. I don't know if it can take, like, generate code features, express. It might work. Yeah, yeah. Hello, Lagu. We're just answering questions. I don't know how to use Postwomen for localhost. And hello, Karan. Welcome. We're just answering questions. So right now we're talking about a question that was asked on the Q&A website by Daniel Garden. Preferred methods for generating REST API documentation. Yeah, so what we're mentioning is like pets slash 1, that's the URL parameters, instead of like pets ID equals 1. That's the query parameter. And I mentioned when I like to use one or the other. Isn't the idea with endpoint description languages that you generate the API code from it? You know the API endpoint does exactly what the YAML says, nothing else. Possibly, but like I mentioned, I don't know. I like to write code. I don't like things to be generated from like configuration files. But it's probably possible to do as well. But it's really just a different flow. Like a different development flow, because you basically have to like design the API first in the configuration. Potentially the routes get generated based on that, but you still need to write code, right? Because you need to connect it to a database. You potentially need to do validations. There's still some code that needs to be written. So you never truly could have like a full API just from documentation that doesn't have all the features of something that was actually written with just code, unless there's some like full-fledged configurations and documentations. Swagger JS doc. I think we saw that in the search results a second ago. This one generates Swagger from JS doc comments. So this is probably similar to API doc. Because you use JS doc comments in your code and then it generates Swagger from that. But yeah. Yeah, and Procelsior is saying, but the ID could also be used as a filter. And I say, don't do this. So if you have any sort of request that is only going to return one resource, it should be in the URL, because that represents that one resource as a URL. But if you have a request that could potentially return multiple, or like name equals Fido, because you might have multiple pets with the name Fido, then it can go in the query parameter. That's my suggestion. And again, it's just an opinion. Hello, Saxavel. Welcome. A lot of Swagger. Thanks, Motivation. So that's pretty much it for that question. There are a lot of different things you can use. My preferred way is API doc. Let me see if I can show some examples of that. I think I have a... Does this repo still exist? Yeah, this is very old, like over a year old. But I did use it in this particular repo. So you can see if you go into source, you go into API, and you look at post. So this is a very simple API, which is just like a blog. So you can list all posts, create a post, update a post. And if you look at post.js, it has each of the express routes. So I'm also using a plugin that allows me to like define examples. And the other benefit of this is my example files can be used in tests. So this is the post route for creating a new post. And this is my JS doc that describes it. So it says this is a post request. This is the URL. The name is to add a post. The example, the body schema, which I'm using with JSON schema, is I actually have defined in a JSON file. So this is another benefit that I think of using JSDoc is you can define your JSON schema. So JSON schema itself is a specification for describing objects. And what I've done is I'm reusing those schemas in my database code as well. So I have this file which describes what a valid post looks like, and that's in that JSON file. But JSDoc can use that JSON file to automatically generate like a table that describes the parameters for that particular request. And then I have examples of a post request, like the body. So an example body, an example success response, and an example error response. And all of those are defined in separate JSON files. And so if I go into DB, and then we look at schemas, we can look at my post schema. Well, oh, nice, it formatted it. So this just describes the post. It has a title, which is a string and is required. There's some validations on it. It has an author, which is a string. It has some validations. So basically, this schema is used in the validation of the incoming request for the body. It's used in the database model, and it's potentially used like in tests to generate examples of this body. So there are a lot of benefits here to using that as well, because we can see in like DB, if we go into models and we look at post, I was using objection in here, and objection allows you to define your schema as a JSON schema. So I'm using that exact same schema. So there's lots of code reuse. And then what I showed earlier was in examples, we have like an example of a post which has a title, an author, and content. And this example I might actually use in my tests, where I can say like request the post with ID 1 and then compare it against this example JSON file. And that prevents me from having like duplicate code or like test fixtures and stuff like that. So there's that. We have the documentation here, and then you basically have a comment for every single route that describes that route. You can have header examples, all that good stuff. And then the thing that actually gets generated, let's see if this is still working. It might not be working. What gets generated is the documentation for interacting with that API. I like API doc. It's pretty cool. And I can show you in my test really quick. So if we're looking at, I guess I do have fixtures. There's like one there. Oh, not that. Yeah, so you can see in this test file, I'm actually bringing in example posts, which are from the examples, and those same examples were used in my documentation as well. And then I use the example posts to just do like a check of when you make the requests, does it equal the example post that came back? But yeah, so this is here. So based on all of those those JS.doc comments, this is the site that got generated. And you can see the routes. You can see, and basically that JSON schema file was used to generate this table. It has the examples embedded. I don't know. I really like it. And the thing is, it actually generates a JSON file, which is like a description of the API, which is this. Is it this thing? No. It's actually. It automatically generates this API data.json. And this is very similar to something like a Postman collection because it's a JSON file that describes what are all of the possible routes, what are some examples. And one thing I did at work was I took the generated JS.json and converted that into a Postman collection. So other people that were using Postman, they could take this, which was generated from my JS.comments, and then use the generated Postman collection to like make requests inside of Postman. So yeah. Yeah, so we'll stop talking about that now, but my preferred is API doc. And there's some weird things about it, but the cool thing is because you have that JSON file, like technically you could create your own documentation browser with like a custom UI very similar to Swagger and such. All right, so that's that. I probably need to walk around and stretch for a second. Let's take a drink of water. And there's a quick question from Pranjal. Actually, Pranjal has a lot of questions in the in the Q&A site, but they're asking, my lines of code exceeds 400 lines. Should I break it into multiple files? It really depends. Just because you have a bunch of lines of code doesn't necessarily mean that it should be broken up, because it may all be related. But if there are things happening in that file that you potentially could reuse in other files, it might make sense to extract those functions out so they can be reused in other places. If it makes more sense from just like understanding the code and from like a code organization perspective to split it up, I would split it up, but I'd say it's totally up to you. Let's say hello to anybody we missed out on. You're welcome, Percelsior, yeah. Maybe you can use that as your argument when you're trying to fight for one or the other. Let's see. Start with unit testing for Node.js APIs. I have some YouTube videos for that, and I do plan to update them pretty soon to create some new ones. But if you take a look at my CRUD API playlist, in here I show you how to make an API that talks to a Postgres database, and we write some unit tests. So you can look at video number 10, which is setting up tests with Mocha-Chai and Supertest. So Supertest is the main tool that we use for testing backend Express APIs. So you can check that out. We will refactor this later. Yeah. And thanks for the follow, Pi Django. Welcome to the show. We do a lot of JavaScript here. But thanks for hanging out with us. And hello, Akash. Welcome. Hello, Gio. We're just answering questions on the Q&A site today. That's what's happening. Could I quickly explain how to set a list of banned words for a database that accepts JSON? Ultimately, it just comes down to like sanitizing the data that comes in a request. So in the past, I've used bad words, which is an npm package. And they just have a preset list of words or bad words, and you can say like filter.clean. You pass in the text that you want to filter or potentially remove bad words from, and then the result is what you would actually store in your database. So you could use a tool like this. You could create a custom regular expression that just has all of the banned words you want to remove from the incoming data. But basically, you need to run some filter or some function on that input before you put it into your database. Yeah. Hello, Patrick. Welcome. Could I please explain what a thread means in coding layman's terms? I don't know. It's been a while since I dealt with stuff like that, but because I always get confused, like the difference between a thread and a process. But basically, on your computer, you have lots of different programs running. So we have this Chrome application running, and it's actually doing a lot of different things, right? We have multiple tabs open, and each one of those tabs is doing different things. We have Postman open. We have my Visual Studio Code open. And typically, the way things work on a computer is every separate program is a different process. So a process, think of it as its little own standalone thing that is like executing code and making something happen. A thread is a way for a process to potentially do multiple things at the same time. Now, it probably doesn't work this way because I think the way Chrome is working is each tab is isolated to its own process or even its own or like its own fork or something like that. But the way you could think about it in layman's terms is that each one of these tabs is a different thread, which actually allows all of these tabs to be working and running at the same time, even though they're all part of one program like Chrome. So maybe that's a good explanation. I don't know. And in terms of layman terms, there are a lot of little white lies in there that are probably technically wrong, but you might get the gist of the idea anyways. Yeah. Uncle Bob would say that every function should do only one thing. Yeah. The thing is, I've come across code bases where they really tried to do that. Like, your functions are super small, but the thing is, if you break down your functions too much, then the code sometimes gets really hard to follow because you see, like, oh, this calls this function, and then this calls this function, and like, oh, I need to go to that function, which calls that function, and that can be a little cumbersome. So I would just say be pragmatic about it. Design patterns in Node. I don't know. A lot of people don't use them. Tomorrow is Saturday, but I have to go to work as we've released a new feature. That's unfortunate. Yeah, I try to not deploy on Fridays. Yeah, thanks, Pranjal. So I'll probably answer your question next, and we can show some. Yeah, this one will be fun because we'll show some code examples. Yeah, cool. You're very welcome. All right, I'm gonna take I'm gonna say a 5-minute break, but then when I come back, we're gonna talk about currying, and we're gonna show some code examples. So that's gonna be fun. While I'm away, be nice to each other, play the drop game, and also shout out to all of my patrons and members. Karan is a member, so if you're a YouTube member, you get a nice little icon next to your name, you get a special little color, and you can use emotes in the chat. So any of my members, if you're watching right now, you should send some emotes. Like, you can use the Alka emote. Well, actually, that one won't work in my... The first 4 emotes will work in my UI. So you can do something like that. Nice. All right, shout out to all my members and patrons. I'll be back in 6 minutes. See you soon. Hello? Hello, friends. I'm back. All right, let's talk about currying. But let me see if I missed anything while I was away. That's my timer. Oh, technically, I was a few seconds early. That's funny, Boyan. I don't know of any. And thanks for the follow, Korean Feet Lover. Welcome. I'm here. I just went away for a 5-minute break. No, you're not late, GameStep. I'll be streaming for another 30 minutes or so. I could vlog, but the thing is, a lot of the vlogs you see online, and thank you, Nick Largy, who is our latest Patreon or patron. Thank you so much for the pledge. But the thing about vlogs are a lot of them are fake or fabricated. Like the video that they're making, they're trying to present a certain persona. And I don't like to do that. I kind of just like to live. So it'd probably be pretty boring to see me, I don't know, vlog. Bonus seconds, yeah. All right, let's talk about currying. So Pranjal asked this question. What is function currying? Please show some code examples. So I'm going to do my best to kind of just wing it. There are definitely resources out there online that might explain it better. I would definitely recommend Fun Function. I'm sure he has some videos on currying. But let's talk about it. So currying is a functional programming concept. And you can do it in JavaScript because in JavaScript, functions are first-class citizens. So let's just make a note of this question from Pranjal. Okay, the classic example of a function that uses currying is something like this. So let's say this. I want to have a variable. Let's call it the 10 adder. And this preparing some currying in the kitchen. And this should be equal to some function like create adder with the value 10. And this function will actually return a new function that will add 10 to anything that I pass into it. So I can say like the result here of 10 adder with 10, and we log the result, we should get the value 20. We're going to just run Quokka so we can see this happening. So right now, create adder isn't defined, but let's create it. So we have this function. It's called create adder. It takes in something like a, and then you can see what's happening here. So because on line 10, I am invoking 10 adder, create adder actually needs to return a function for this to work, right? So what create adder will do is it'll return a function that takes in a value and then returns the previous value added to that value. And so now we get the value 20. But the cool thing about this is 10 adder can be used over and over again. So let's just put this in a let so we can reuse it. And actually, let me do this. I'm going to stop Quokka really quick. And if I say result equals 10 adder with 20, what should be the result right here? Will it be 30? Will it be 40 because we already added 10 to it before? Andrew Lane says 30. Who says 30? Who says 40? What should the result here be? Ed is saying, I don't think you're too boring in real life, and it would be boring. It would be boring to watch, or it wouldn't be boring to watch. Infinite loop. 30. Yeah, most people are saying 30, and it is 30. So the cool thing about this is create adder holds on to the value 10. And that 10 value here, this is actually an example of a closure, because this function closes over the value a, and later on we can reuse that same value. I'm using the font Anonymous Pro, Guillermo, and hello. Oh, it shouldn't be boring. Very cool. So if we start this back up, we should see 30. Yeah. Because this adder holds on to the value 10, and that value does not get modified. And so for one, this is an example of a closure, but this is currying because we're creating a function that holds on to previous values and returns a function that can be used later on. Now, at the same time, you don't have to store it in a variable. I could say like create adder with 20, that gives us back a function, and then we add the value 10 to it, and we get back 30. So this would be the syntax to do it, because this right here returns a function, and then the result of that is a function that we then invoke with the value 10, which gives us 30. And let's take a look at this example that Doc added. And so this is a functional programming concept, because one of the tenets of functional programming is you have pure functions, meaning a function that takes in a value will always return the same value given that same input. And so if you have a function that takes in multiple parameters, like we could have created a function called add that takes in a and b, and then return a plus b, right? This works just fine. We would invoke it in a different way, and we'd have to like reuse that. We'd have to pass in 10 every time. But what this allows us to do is create a function with almost some sort of like pre-computed result that we can then continue to reuse later on. And this is a very trivial example, because we're not really doing anything with a before we return the function. But we could have easily said like a times equals 2. And now we've basically multiplied the... we can call it like create double adder or something like that. So like double the value that gets passed in, and later on add it. And so this is potentially some complex calculation that you wouldn't want to have to do over and over again. And now, because we've stored it in a variable, or we've stored it in a function, and that has a closure, we can reuse it later on. But this is a basic example of currying. It's a function that returns a function, and really any function that takes in multiple arguments could potentially be turned into a curried function, and you see that a lot in functional programming. Let's see what Doc just passed us. Let's see. Oh, not that. Actually, yeah, I'm gonna copy this because it converted the less than and greater thans. Cool. So what this mess of code has done is you can pass it a function, and it automatically curries that function. So let's do this. We'll say const curry equals that. And now that I have this add function, I could actually curry it. So I could say like curried add equals curry with add. And now if I say, if we just log curried add with 10, it gives us back a function, and if we invoke that, we get back the actual result. So this is a way of generalizing the problem. So this curry function that Doc created could take in a function that accepts any number of arguments. It could be 2, it could be 10, and it turns it into a chain where each invocation returns a function using the previous values until ultimately you invoke it, which will give you like the final return value. And Werner is saying, ¿Cómo desarrollar lógica de programación, mi hermano? My Spanish isn't that good, but they're asking how to develop the logic of programming, my brother. You just have to practice. So one thing you can do is just try coding problems and do lots of them, and really just hone your skills by doing them often. Like if you've watched the Code Kata stream that I do on every Wednesday, doing problems like that can help you get better at programming. In which situations are currying useful? Typically, whenever you want to pre-compute a value. So, like I said, this is a very trivial example because we're just reusing the variable here. But if we were doing some sort of complex calculation with a, now, instead of having to do that complex calculation every time we pass in the value, the same value a, it's almost like memoizing it. It's saving the value for later to be used in a function call that happens later. It reminds me of link queries in C#. Yeah. See you later, Percelsior. Thanks for hanging out with us. And thanks for the follow, Werner. React Redux current is an example of currying. Sure, because, I mean, this returns a function. I mean, it's not taking in any arguments, the first invocation, but it's still technically returning a function that you can invoke later on. And hello, the devs, and welcome. Any number of arguments greater than 2. Yes. Well, this one, I think this might actually handle currying a function that only takes in 1 value. Let's create a function called simple that takes in a and then just returns a. If we create a curried simple, and then we just log simple with 42. Nope, so it handles it. So the logic is weird because it's all on one line, but basically they're checking the number of arguments, and if the number of arguments is only 1, it's going to immediately invoke that function. Otherwise, it's going to return a new function which binds the previous arguments. I need to answer Spanish. I don't speak Spanish. Hello, Miku. Welcome. args.length greater than function.length. So in JavaScript, any function actually has a length property. So if we log simple, we can see it's just showing it as a function, but every function has a property called length, and that value is set to the number of arguments that that function takes in. So what this is saying is if the number of arguments that the function takes in is greater than the number of arguments for the original function, f, then just invoke the function. So for any function in JavaScript, .length will tell you the number of arguments it takes in. It's really up to you, Vidang. I don't have any really opinions on that. Yeah. Yep. So if we call, sorry, curried simple. Yep, it still works. Yeah, I messed that up. But the way the code is written here is if that function only takes in one argument, it's going to invoke it. Yep. And thanks for the follow, Schmoggles Mike. Welcome. So that's the basic definition of currying. Like I mentioned, this can get a lot more complex, but ultimately a function that returns a function and uses the previous arguments is a curried function. And also this is an example of a closure. So if you're ever asked in an interview, what is a closure and when might it be useful? This is that. So the fact that later on we can invoke this function that got returned, but it still has access to the value a, that's a closure because it closes over the value. Karan is saying, should I buy a Quokka license? Is it that much useful? It really depends. I use the free version. The main thing about the free version is you cannot import local modules, and I really only use it when I'm working on code katas, which is code that's just in a single file. If you get the pro version, you can do more than that. But I really just use the free version. But Aiz is asking what this thing is. It's called Quokka.js. You can install it in VS Code, and they have support for other editors as well. But it basically runs your code inside of the editor. And it is, I mean, it's a little expensive. I think it's like $50 for a license. Yeah. But if you work at a company, you can just ask your company to pay for it, because your company can probably afford it. And it's pretty useful. Here, I'll share it. Andrew with all the drops. I don't know if you heard earlier, Andrew, but the drop game has a 90-second cooldown today, so you might want to cool down your bot a little bit. Yeah. Yeah. But you should, I should say you should support Quokka because it's a pretty cool tool. All right. I'm only going to be live for another 10 minutes, so let's answer one more question. It looks like Schiffman made it to the top. Yeah, I mean, this is a simple answer. So Schiffman from the Coding Train is asking, wow, this system is amazing, talking about my Q&A app. Stream goals. I noticed you have a CG bot. What's the best resource for me to learn about Discord bots and making some Coding Train tutorials? Just look at the Discord JS node package. I would say that. So that's what I used. And I actually did a stream a long time ago where I just learned this from scratch. And it's a pretty cumbersome stream to watch, I think, because I had never used it before. If we search for like Discord on my channel, so I've done a few streams where I tried to build a Discord bot. I think this is the one. Yeah, this is like a 5-hour stream, and this is basically just me struggling through the documentation, trying to figure out how things work and how to create the bot. I do a lot of things wrong, but then I did another stream where I cleaned those things up and made them better. But yeah, my recommendation is look at their docs. They do have some example bots that you can look at. And then I'll share my code really quick for the Discord bot that runs on my Discord channel. Discord manager. So if you have ever joined the Coding Garden Discord, our bot does a few things. I'll show that really quick. And you can see in the introductions channel how it automatically adds roles to people. So we created a bot. So we created a bot that is listening for emoji reactions to this code of conduct. And let me see really quick. Can I like remove reactions on this? Yeah. This confuses people. Because when people add reactions to this one, that's not the one. But basically my bot is CG is for Coding Garden, exactly. My bot is listening for emoji reactions on this message, and when it sees an emoji reaction, it recognizes that user has acknowledged the code of conduct. And also, it's listening for messages in the introductions channel. And anytime someone sends a message in here, it checks to see if they're not yet a seedling. So seedling is the role we give to everyone. Germinating is the role you get whenever you first join the server. So the bot also listens for new server joins, and when a user joins, it adds them to the germinating role, which gives them limited access. So if you've logged into the Discord before and you have not added an introduction or sent a welcome message, you're not going to see any of these channels. You're really only going to see the welcome, introductions, and like the live chat. But the germinating role is like very restricted. So once you send an introduction and once you acknowledge the code of conduct, the bot will automatically remove the germinating role, add the seedling role, and then you get access to the rest of the system. Yeah, and we can see people joining here. And basically what happens, like with the Discord JS, I'm able to listen to member add. Or join. There's a particular event. I could probably see it in the code. So if we look at index, it's listening for guild member add. So when this event happens, it moves them to the germinating role, and then it's listening for other things. And then when members are removed, I make sure that I remove any code of conduct reactions or anything else like that. And someone's typing an introduction. We might be able to see it happen here if I leave it open. But ultimately, Dan, you can look at my code here. Discord JS is probably the best way. And also, that might actually be a fun stream to collaborate on. I don't think you're listening right now, but it would be a fun stream to collaborate on with the coding train to work on like a Discord bot, and I could help out with that. And let's see. Message on the live stream, yeah. So yeah, there's that. And I mean, there might be other resources out there, but I basically just learned by reading the docs. And the main thing that is tricky about these docs, which I didn't realize, is they have a special type in here called collection. I think it's collection. Yeah, collection. And this is not your standard JavaScript array. It has a lot of methods that are like it. This is what I had to get used to, because I was doing things where like I converted the correct collection into an array so I could do things like map it. But once you understand the collection type and the different methods that are on it, it's a lot easier to work with. Oh yeah, and that's the other thing, there are commands built in as well. So there's a command listener for different commands like 8-ball, fortune, or pull. And I just wrote those custom commands to listen for an incoming message. with the bot, those are the mod commands. I'll just put it in random. If you do exclamation mark and then the fortune emoji, or like the crystal ball emoji, you'll get back a random fortune. And these actually come from Fortune Tweetable. So Fortune Tweetable is a package on NPM that takes fortunes from the Linux fortune command, and it only shows ones that are tweetable, and I believe ones that like aren't offensive. But this is just an NPM package that has a bunch of different fortunes in it, so that's what we're using. And then there's also, we created the poll command, which was pretty fun, but you can do poll. Does this work? And then you can provide a series of options for people to vote on. Yes. No. What? Who? When? And so what it does is it sends a message, and then it automatically emoji reacts with like AB, like any number of values that you added in here, and then people can click on any one of them to vote for them. And you can see the code for that in commands poll. But basically, we have all the possible options. You can have up to 26 options. We're listening for when a poll comes in. There's also like a timeout, but yeah. And it looks like A is winning with 5 votes. Cool. And you can see it happen here with very good player Gouge, who they sent their introduction message. They at some point responded to the code of conduct, and so the CG bot recognized that and then automatically added them to the seedling role and removed the germinating role. So that's how the bot works. And yeah, I kind of have to go. Let's see if there's any quick questions that I can answer. I know Pranjal mentioned that they have a question. Not Pranjal, Tipsy Ninja. I want to take part in this year's GSOC. Is this like a Google thing? Google Summer of Code. Okay, yeah. Okay, so I want to take part in this year's Google Summer of Code 2020. I don't have much experience in contributing to open source. I tried to research it and I blew my mind. I don't understand the code. Don't know what to do as I'm a beginner, as you know, but really want to get selected in Google Summer of Code. Please direct me. I'm not familiar with the Google Summer of Code. Is it just contributing to open source, but then you get paid for it? Let's see how it works. Interested students propose a project to work on. Accepted students spend the summer coding with the guidance from a mentor, and then you submit the code for the world to see. Open source projects apply to mentor organizations. Once accepted, organizations discuss possible ideas with students, and they provide mentors. I see. So I'll mention this. If you're completely and totally new to open source, I did do a video on it a while back. You might have actually seen it, Tipsy Ninja. But yeah, I did this video on how to contribute to open source projects, and it just talks about like finding a project, how to look at issues, reading the code of conduct, reading the getting started guide, different things like that. So I would at least start there if you don't know much about open source. And then the other thing is if the Google Summer of Code has like a list of projects, applications open. Yeah, so February 5th is the deadline, so you have some time. Oh, and then, no, you have till the 20th, because the 20th is when students can apply. No, is when they're announced. Okay, so on February 20th, they're basically going to have a list of all the possible projects that you could contribute to. So I would say step 1 is to just look through all of them and see, like, what interests you and what could you possibly contribute to, because otherwise, you're going to have a hard time if you're not interested in the project or if it's, like, beyond your skill level. So there's that. And then they do have the application period, but you won't really know what you can contribute to until those organizations are announced. So yeah, and I would start now by trying to contribute to open source projects that you use. So if you use Vue.js, you could try contributing to the documentation. If you use P5, you could try contributing there, or contributing to the P5.js web editor. Find projects that you use, go to their GitHub repo, and just see like what's out there and how you can possibly contribute. And in this in this video where I talk about, well, not this one, where I talk about contributing to open source, I show you how you can basically filter issues to find things that are easier to work on. And Andrew is mentioning Hacktoberfest as well. So Hacktoberfest happens every October, where you can get a free t-shirt for contributing to open source. So I would say if you don't get into Google Summer of Code this year, Hacktoberfest would be a good place to try that. What is happening on Discord? Nothing. I don't think so. Are there? Yeah, that's fine. Ashwin is saying it was the most complex stream. Well, that's because I actually wasn't able to contribute. So I tried working on the code, but I chose an issue that had been open for a very long time and like nobody else was working on purpose to see if I could try and fix it. If you're just getting started, I mentioned it in the video, but you probably want to find something that's a little easier so that way you can actually make a pull request. We basically got into the weeds and didn't figure it out. So hopefully that helped, Tipsy Ninja. Like I said, you won't really know until you see the organizations announced. And if you don't have any experience contributing yet, you probably want to build up that experience, and you have like a little over a month to try it out. So yeah. All right, that's it for questions. I'm sorry, there were a ton of questions, but I do have to go. Let's see. There are a lot of anonymous questions. Interesting. This would have been fun. Yeah, there are a ton of questions. I am going to do a game night stream on Sunday, but I might stream a little bit earlier and try to answer some questions because there's quite a few questions in here that we haven't gotten to yet. The drops only work every 90 seconds. This is Tony, so that might be why. I just hide them. So the questions are still there. It's just whenever I click this, it just marks them as archived. I technically could add a tab here that shows like archived questions, but yeah. All right, I gotta go. Do I have good first? I don't know of any right now, but if you watch that video, I'll show you what you can look for in the issues. All right, I gotta go. Thanks everyone for hanging out. We're gonna do a raid, a Twitch raid. And however, Coding Train is going to be streaming on YouTube, I think in about an hour. I don't think they're live yet. Let's see. Let's see. Do we see it as upcoming? Let me see really quick if it's in the Discord. Live chat. Oh, it's in schedule. Here it is. Cool. So yeah, so Coding Train is going to be live in a little over an hour. But if you're watching on YouTube, you should definitely tune in to Coding Train in a little bit. And if you do tune in, send him this message. This one. There you go. So yeah, they're not live right now, but when they are, you can send them that message. But for now, we are going to raid a Twitch channel. And, I mean, if you don't want to raid a Twitch channel, just head over to his channel and throw that in the live chat. But let's find someone to raid. Let's see. Instafluff is live. We should raid Instafluff. I think today is Mug Cake Day. It looks like mac and cheese. All right, we're going to raid Instafluff. So Instafluff is a super awesome streamer. He is super kind, and he writes code. And actually, did I share? No, I didn't. I think I shared Twitch on Twitch. But if you're watching on YouTube and you do want to join us in the raid, head over to my to my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/codinggarden, and we are going to raid Instafluff. And basically a raid is where we take all the viewers of this stream and we go over to the other stream. So that's going to be fun. Get that raid message ready. Yeah, there's the raid message. You can copy it from Andrew. And so when we go over to their stream, you just got to be super kind and super nice to everyone. Share the Coding Garden love. But alrighty, everyone, wherever you are in the world, have a wonderful morning, afternoon, evening, or night. And until next time, and also join us for the game night on Sunday, here's this.